God. Okay.
All right, so good morning again.
Good morning.
I guess we haven't seen each other since like high school.
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's been like what, 16 years?
Oh God.
Good Lord, we're old. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's been like 16 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wild.
That's wild. I can't. When I think about time like that, it's just like
Yeah,
I,
yeah, yep.
my
But,
my brain cannot compute.
but I wanted to thank you before we get started for talking to me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to ask first, um, when did your journey start? And if you want to talk about who was involved or like, the people involved that, you know,
So the first time I ever experienced like massive grief, like to the point where like my brain stopped working. I'm sorry, you're gonna hear my dogs playing in the background. Um, was when I was 14 and my grandpa died of cancer. And like he was basically like my dad. I didn't have a dad growing up. Like I had a stepdad, but like we weren't tight or anything. My grandpa was my dad. Like he was my father figure. And he was a strong guy. He was a house painter. And then after he retired, I mean, like I remember him like hauling wood and like he was just a guy, like he was a very strong man. And I went from being at my grandparents every weekend to like once a month to once every other month while he was sick with cancer because I didn't want to see him. And then it got to the point where it's like I remember my uncle showing up at my house. Like I got off the bus and my uncle was at my house and I was like, well, that's weird. And he like sat me down and he's like, listen, like you have to go say goodbye. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go say goodbye. Like because if I say goodbye, then it's real and I don't want it to be real.
yeah,
Um, and then, yeah. And then he passed away 2 days before Christmas. And that was, I mean, that like changed, like Christmas used to be like a very special place for us, like I'm sure, like the first Christmas is always the worst Christmas.
yeah,
And it was just like everybody was so quiet and nobody was laughing and it was just like, you know, and being 14 years old and in retrospect having already existing mental illness, I just fell off. I started doing hard drugs. I was literally searching for like anything. I was dating all the wrong guys. I was, and then soon I like summer, I turned 15. So like he died in December. By the summer, I had like found Jesus and went through that whole arc of trying to fill voids and then eventually ended back up on drugs. So it was all just because of that. Now, since that, I have lost, I don't even know how many people, I mean, you weren't a part of that group in high school. I don't think that like was doing drugs or anything like that, but a lot of my friends from high school and a little bit after high school are gone because of overdoses. So like, or suicide, it's been one or the other for the last 16 years, but it's ongoing. So the way I dealt with grief when I was 14 is not the way I deal with grief now.
right.
Like that messed me up for probably about 5 years, my grandpa dying. And then now it's like someone tells me that someone died and I'm just like, oh, okay. I don't cry.
Like you become numb.
It's not so much numb as I know what to expect.
Hmm.
Like I know it's like, okay, I'm gonna be sad, I'm gonna make jokes, I'm gonna, reach for stuff that connects me to them, that comforts me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm gonna move on and everything's gonna be exactly the way it was before.
Right.
And it's just the cycle. But
That's a lot
yeah.
for in 16 years.
It's a lot. I mean,
especially when it's people our own age.
it's honestly, it started when we were in high school. Like, I remember being, I think it was freshman year when Chris Watson died. This kid, I think he was a senior. Someone in our class was dating him. I don't want to drop names, but like someone in our class was dating him. And I remember that happening, and it was an overdose, and being like, wait, what? This only happens in like teen dramas, or,
Right.
you know, as seen on like, you know, the after school specials. This doesn't happen in Bridgewater.
Right.
People don't die of heroin overdoses in Bridgewater, New Jersey. Like, you know, and then it was just every year someone's passed away, or multiple people.
Yeah, I don't remember any of this. Maybe I was just like my own little
You
world.
weren't on that side of things, thank God. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there was two sides to where we grew up, where it was like, shush, guys, can we go do that in the other room? Thank you. There's two sides to where we grew up. You know, you were either on like a track to like succeed and go to college and do all of those, you know, blue ribbon school district things, or you were on my side of things, where it was just like, I had learning disabilities that weren't being addressed. I had friends with mental illnesses. I had mental illnesses, and went the other way. And I feel like if you went the other way, you were on a track to overdose or go to jail. You know?
That's a lot for a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
A lot for a 5-year-old. That's me right now. I'm like trying to wrap my head around that.
I like look back on that time in my life, and I'm like, how did I get out of that cycle? You know, like that whole like traumatic event, coping poorly, not coping in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And then creating more traumatic events from my poor coping skills.
I mean, but you did it.
Yeah. I don't know how. Just luck.
All that matters is that you did it.
It's all luck. But yeah, that kind of grief, like from my grandpa, that just, it shapes your life in a way that you don't know. You know, there's no way to control it.
Yeah.
You can't control like that type of spiraling.
I remember when my mom's dad died when I was like 2 months before I turned 9.
Oh wow. That's young.
Yeah, and he was like the first person ever, you know.
Yeah.
And he died around Halloween. And my mom was 29 years old. And she just had my brother over the summer, so she was 29 with 5 kids.
Oh my gosh.
She just lost her dad. And looking back now, like imagining me at 29 years old, and you know, just
with that amount of like, you need so much support. Like even with one kid, it takes a village, but like 5 kids and then losing that support.
Yeah, losing her dad.
And you're not even 30.
Yeah. And you know, same thing Christmas for us, like we didn't put up a Christmas tree, Santa didn't come, and we're like, I was 9, 6, 5, 4, or 9, 4, 3, 2. My brother was 3 months old.
Yeah.
So like,
sorry,
you know,
stupid dog.
You're like, oh, there's no, you know,
there's no
like
way
Santa
to, like,
didn't come to our house, and you're like looking back at it, like that's not the biggest thing that happened, but you know, you're 9 years old, And you have to tell,
Santa's something that you've literally looked forward to all year.
yeah, I remember going to school and be like, oh, what Santa get you? I was like, Santa didn't come to my house. And I was like, I mean, Santa didn't come to your house. And I had to explain, you know, Santa,
Yeah.
So it's just like something about like the grandpa.
There is something about the grandpa. Like,
Yeah.
I've noticed, I have another friend whose grandfather died when she was well into her 20s. I mean, he was 80 plus years old. And that totally messed her up.
Yeah.
There's something about grandfathers that I think is like not, I don't want to say it's not talked about, but like, I don't think it's talked about enough, especially for little girls who have that like healthy relationship with their grandfather. To lose that,
Yeah.
it's devastating at any age, at 9, at 14, at 25. Like,
Yeah.
it's so devastating because for a lot of us, that's our main father figure. Like, I don't know about, like, you have a dad who's
Yeah.
present, but like, I didn't. Oh my God, guys, go. And, to lose that. And then when I was 22, I lost my uncle, who was my other main father figure. And that was equally devastating, but I was 22 and I was way more emotionally mature and I didn't completely fall apart.
So what did you do at grief that was completely different than, prior?
I processed it. When my grandpa died, I didn't process it. And I mean, and we had seen that coming for a year. Like he from the day he was diagnosed to the day he died, I want to say it was like a little over a year, maybe like a year and a couple of days. But when my uncle died, I had just spent a week with him in Washington, D.C. for the 4th of July. Me, him, my mom, and our cousins who live in Switzerland went out to D.C. for the 4th because we were like, oh, this is like the most American thing we can do with the Switzerland people is Washington, D.C., 4th of July, Obama's in office, like, let's do it. And we had a blast for a week, came home. I was up camping and we got a call from his neighbor that he was a mountain biker. He was out on a bike ride and just
Oh no, you froze.
Sure what it was, some kind of cardio thing. And instead of me, like, I cried for a couple of weeks about that, but like, instead of me just like resorting to all of my bad coping skills, I just processed it and mourned him. I had like a bunch of his t-shirts that I turned into like pillowcases. I mean, my mom's still like living at his house. Like when he died, he left her the house. So she moved out of Bridgewater and to Easton to live with him, or to live at his house. So like we have all of that, all of those pieces of him still. And yeah, and it didn't, I was fully expecting for it to rock me to my core like my grandpa's did, and it didn't.
Right.
Like I was okay. I still had a job. I still had a life. I still had a roof over my head. I still had friends. I wasn't doing hard drugs. I didn't relapse. I didn't, I probably ate most of my feelings around that time, but like, that was it.
Yeah.
It didn't devastate me. And that's when I think I realized like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Right.
Like I can grieve properly. That is something that I am capable of doing.
Which is a big thing because grief sucks.
It's awful and everybody deals with it differently.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through it differently and everybody takes different amounts of time. And I remember when I was like 19 or so, I had really bad depression and I had like suicidal ideations or something. I don't remember what it led to, but I ended up at the psych ward at Somerset County Medical Center for like 10 days just to like stabilize me and get me on medications or whatever. And they had a grief counselor that like sat with us, and the worst grief counselor to ever exist. And she said that like, she's like, oh no, grief shouldn't last more than 6 to 12 months. And I mean, we're talking, this is 5 years after my grandfather died, and I'm still grieving his death.
Yeah.
And I lost it. I lost it on her. Like, this little 19-year-old girl just screaming at this like 50-year-old British woman, like, you don't know how to do your job. Who are you to tell me how long to grieve for?
Yeah.
Who are you to tell me how to grieve? Like, I lost it on her. And yeah, but I mean, like,
That's horrible.
nobody can tell you how to grieve.
No.
You're gonna do it how you're gonna do it. There's no proper way to do it. As long as you're not hurting yourself,
Yeah.
go for it. You know, take as much time as you need. Do what you need to do.
When I was 20, my cousin passed away, and he was like my best friend. And
Is this the one that this is why you like donate platelets or plasma or whatever? Okay.
platelets, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this is when I was in my first 2 years in college, and I was in Maryland, and I would come up every month, every weekend, every other weekend to come donate platelets for him in the city. And so I was there the day that he passed, not knowing that I was going to be the day that he passed. I had an appointment, and I was filling out paperwork. My mom ended up coming with me that day, just like randomly. And, we found out that he wasn't doing well. So we went up to the room, and, that's when everything was going on. And I made it a point to make sure I was going to come back one day to donate platelets, even if I couldn't donate for him and him ready to help someone else, even though I couldn't donate to him specifically anymore. And I think it took me maybe 7 years to finally go back. And
but you did, you went back.
I walked in, and the tears just wouldn't stop. I remembered exactly every moment from sitting down to going up his room, just from walking into the donor room. And every year when I go back, I cry every single time. And it's been 14 years. So for someone to say your grief needs to end in a year, like that's just so rude.
It's very rude. Like, so my mom has all these old like videos, like home videos and stuff when we were kids, but it's on those little cassettes that you have to like then put into a big cassette and then put in a VCR. So there's no way to really watch them right now. So she's getting them all moved to digital. And I know that there is tons of video of me and my uncle and me and my grandpa when I was like little.
Yeah.
And there's something that I am like petrified of, and it is hearing their voices again. Because it's not like now where like we've got smartphones and everything's recorded and everything's preserved forever on like Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I have like pictures, like printed pictures with my grandfather. I can't remember what his voice sounds like. I can't remember what my uncle's voice sounds like. So like knowing that I'm going to hear those voices, I'm so scared that I'm just gonna like break down and lose it. And it's one of those things where like you going into the hospital every year to donate, it's kind of like, I don't want to say like triggering that trauma again, but like it's you having to deal with it every year again.
Yeah.
Which it's great that you're doing, but at the same time, it's like you're kind of exposing yourself to that every year.
But it's also for me to feel like connected to him again, because that's what I always did for him. And then I would finish up, and I would go upstairs to him, and I would hang out with him for a few hours, and I would head home. So kind of like my way of like feeling him, even though like he wasn't there.
Yeah.
like having those memories, because like my memory is like horrible. Like I remember 74% of my childhood. My memory is so bad. But once I step into that room, like just memories of him and memories of like talking with him and laughing with him.
So it's like good tears. It's like happy tears
They're like
and
bittersweet tears.
comforting tears almost.
Almost, and then like bittersweet because like when you fill out the paperwork to donate, it says, are you donating for anyone specifically? And I would always name when I did it, and now there's no name to write. That's hard.
That's rough, man. I couldn't imagine going through that. I don't know if I would have been as strong as you and gone back.
It took 7 years, but
yeah,
I made a promise, and we like told the ladies that day that we were there for before he passed, we will come back and we'll make like donate. And every year, and no matter what, I make it. The 1 year I was 2020, but like that doesn't count.
Yeah. That year just doesn't count, period, for anything. Yeah.
But and there's been times where I've gone and like my veins weren't working or the machine busted and I cried hysterically. And my parents were like, why are you so like, why are you, working yourself up? I said, because you don't understand. I need to do this. Like, this is my way of feeling connected to him. And I feel so let down that I wasn't able to do it this time.
Yeah, it's like your one thing that you have that still puts you in his world, it throws you back into that world for that hour or two, or I don't know how long it takes to do it, but like that's what you have. When so a couple of years ago, I think it's 3 years at this point. Yeah, it's 3 years this past October. So a little backstory. My mom and my stepdad got divorced in my early-ish 20s. I don't know exactly when it happened. He moved back down to Florida, where he's originally from. He meets back up with his ex-girlfriend, Judy, who is like this just beautiful, amazing, wild woman. And my stepdad's a very like conservative man. Like he likes like what he likes, and he doesn't really like go off the beaten path or whatever. But Judy like made him kind of get out of his bubble. Judy had a son, Mark. So because you don't divorce your kids, my stepdad's still very much part of my life. He's my dad for all intents and purposes. We go down every winter and see him. Mark was my age. And Mark was like me, like me and Mark were very, very similar people. We both had incredibly self-destructive patterns, like the same self-destructive patterns. We both like, it was, very parallel lives. And 3 years ago, well, I guess it was like 5 years ago, my mom, Judy, died suddenly out of the blue, devastating everybody. Then he kind of went off, ended up going on like a really bad bender. And so his brother and my stepdad sent him to San Francisco to live with some people. He ends up finding meth. Not a good story. They bring him back to Florida to get him help and get him, situated and all of that. And then 3 years ago, he killed himself. So the one thing that Mark was about the most was surfing. At this one spot in Florida, Ponce Inlet, that was his spot. He would ride his bike every single morning at the crack of dawn, 8 miles across the bridge to go to Ponce Inlet and surf. So every year we go down there, we make it a point to go to Ponce Inlet. And it is like, that specific part of Florida, those specific restaurants or parts of the beach or, all of that area just connects me to him so much so that it hurts, but it also feels so good.
Yeah.
like we'll go down and like this last time we were just down there, we went to this place called the Boondocks. I haven't been there since Mark was alive. Like the last time I went down was probably about 6 years ago with him and his mom. And me and my husband went down and it was just the two of us. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, man, like when was the last time I was here? And I was like, oh wow, I haven't been here since I came with Mark and Judy. And then it was like, okay, I'm gonna cry now. Like
Yeah.
this is like, like this is one of those that triggered me.
Mhm.
I felt what I needed to feel, and then I moved on. But like, you going to the hospital and donating platelets, me being at that specific restaurant, it's those things that like they hurt, but they also just kind of like wrap you up,
Yeah.
in like a warm, cozy blanket of them, if that metaphor makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
But like, it's so comforting to be around something that made them happy, like that made him happy that you did that. So you're going to keep doing that. It made Mark happy to go surfing and, spend time with us at these stupid little restaurants. And so I'm going to keep doing that,
Yeah.
and eventually it's not going to hurt as much. I feel like it hurts a lot less than it did the first year we went down.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. If you wanted to tell the world one thing about grief that you wish you knew before your grief journey started, what would you want to tell them?
So I think like that, I wish I knew that metaphor. I'm sure you've heard it on your grief journey where like you're in a box, right? And there's a ball in the box with you, and that's your grief. And the ball is so big and it's taking up so much space. And, and you think as you get older and time moves on that ball actually gets smaller, but it doesn't. The box just gets bigger. Like we just have more room, so that it's not taking up all the space. It's taking up that space over there. It doesn't go away.
Right.
The grief and the loss and all of that, it's never gone. You're never going to look back on your cousin or your grandpa or your sister or your friend or anything like that and not be sad about it. You're always going to be sad about it. It's just you have more room now to feel other things as well. I wish I knew that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I just thought this is forever. I'm never going to feel anything other than sad, which is why I numbed out with drugs, and I self-destructed because I was like, well, there's nothing happy out there for me.
Right.
Like the world doesn't get better. It doesn't get nicer. It doesn't get less sad. I wish I had like allowed myself that space to feel better,
Yeah. For me right now, I feel like it's starting to get worse. I think worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
And
you gotta go through it, That's the toughest part, is just saying, oh, this is it. And I have to get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You specifically experienced so much loss in the matter of what, 2 days?
Yeah.
3 days?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like that is Like, I remember seeing everything kind of play out on Facebook and just being like, I can't, if I was her, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. Like, I couldn't.
Yeah. It was
Like, it's so much, so fast, but you're gonna get through it. There's no doubt.
yeah.
You know, the world does not stop turning, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I wish it did. I wish the world just kind of like just paused, give me a second, you know,
Yeah.
but it doesn't, which sucks. But you know, it's one of those human things that like we just keep going.
We keep going.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the worst thing ever. The worst part of being alive is dealing with death.
yeah. um,
Yeah.
and I was gonna ask you, what is the worst thing that someone has told you? But I think that counselor topped it. I don't know if anyone could tell you anything worse.
I'm sure there have been a lot of, why don't you just like, from my parents, a lot, you know, because they didn't understand. I mean, my grandfather was the first person my mom ever lost too. And my mom was like in her 40s, early 40s. So I think she was 40. So it's like, I'm dealing with this grief at 14. You're dealing with this grief at 40. Which one of us is going to get over it quicker, or at least get through the grief quicker?
Right.
It's going to be the 40-year-old, not the 14-year-old. You know, so just get over it, move on. You know, then I hated always, and I'm sure you've heard it because everybody says it, and I'm sure I've said it even to someone who is grieving, where it's like, oh, well, they would have wanted you, or they wouldn't have wanted you. And
Yeah,
it's
my
like,
eye
it's not
rolls
about
around a
them.
lot.
You know, like I hate that because it's not
Yeah, but
about
they
them.
wouldn't want to be dead. They would want to be alive.
Yeah, it's like they don't, they're
There's a
not
lot they wouldn't
here.
want.
It doesn't matter what they would have wanted. What matters right now is how I'm dealing with it
Yeah.
and what I feel, you know, and that's the thing with grief. And I'm sure you've come to realize this, it's a very selfish process.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly selfish. And the guilt that you feel on top of grieving is ridiculous. Like looking back on it, I'm like, man, I put my parents through so much awful stuff because I couldn't get through this. You know, they were scared for me. They were contemplating sending me to military school. There was like, you know, rehab was on the calendar for a minute there. Like I got kicked out of Bridgewater and I got sent to alternate school at one point. You know, and that was like a whole big thing. And like I feel so much guilt because I couldn't get through it in like a timely fashion and in a healthy fashion,
Right.
you know? But I was also 14 years old and not prepared for that at all. So,
Like, this is not something that's taught. It's not something that's like a course.
no.
And no matter how prepared you are, until you're in it, like you really don't know. And
Mm-mm.
you know, the whole thing that you just said about being selfish, 1000%. I feel like I'm the most like self-centered person right now because I feel like everyone else's problems, like I really don't care because and I like obviously I do care, but like I feel like my problems like are here
Yeah.
because everyone else and I'm like, oh, they're here. And I'm like, I don't care that like your car's not starting. Like I don't care.
Yeah. Like there was
Feel bad. I hope your
that
car
post,
starts. But
there was that post on Facebook that
yeah.
you posted, and I was like, good for you, girl. You posted something like, I don't want to hear that your basement flooded.
Oh yeah, that's when everything first happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't care. Like,
Because I did have
and I was
someone
like,
say to
good
me,
for you for putting that boundary out because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have done that.
because I said that because someone did say to me or did complain to me about much their how much water they got in their basement. And I just looked at
Oh, I would have just been like,
and I was like,
you know.
you know how my sister passed, right? Like you came to the funeral. I'm very confused why you're talking to me about this right now.
I think a lot of people don't know, and myself included, when everything went down with you. What am I going to be like, the 800th person to be like, I'm so sorry for your loss? I have no idea how to add to this. I have no idea how to talk to someone that went through what you went through. The amount of just awfulness you must feel
Yeah.
is just something that I don't think that I've ever felt. As much depression and all that dark shit that's happened to me, I don't think that I've ever felt that level. So like I don't know how to, like, hi person I haven't seen in 16 years. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry for your loss. Here if you need me.
And I think that's why I wanted to make these videos to show people like, even if you don't know what to say, like, and I've said this before in a bunch of times, I would rather be annoyed by you like reaching out too much or like saying something than be like, why is no one reaching out at all? So like
Yeah.
I have so many messages that I've received, and truthfully, I didn't respond to probably 99% of them because it was just very overwhelming. And like,
Oh yeah.
you know, very overwhelming that so many people reached out, but so overwhelming because of what just happened. Um, but I want to talk to someone who hasn't been through grief, but has been there for someone who is grieving. Because
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be hard to find right
I
now,
know,
especially with like COVID.
yeah, I want to
you know
someone like I've been very fortunate in this time to have, a handful of people who have stepped up more than I could have ever even imagined. Um, and I know not everyone is as lucky.
yeah.
And people didn't have the magic words, they didn't have the magic anything to like take my pain away. But their friends and the things that they didn't say and the things that they did say, were the reason why I got up every morning.
I mean, it's those people, and I don't think I had that for a lot of the people in my life that have passed away.
Yeah.
When
That makes a
Mark
big
died,
difference.
yeah, when Mark died, I was working at, I won't name it, but I was working at an insurance company, a very popular health insurance company. And I was working in like provider services. So like I would just talk to doctors' offices all day and like give them health insurance benefits. And I remember when Mark died, I got a text from my dad saying like Mark killed himself last night or whenever it was. And I was just like, oh my God. I went to my boss and I was like, because at that point, like he was my brother.
Yeah.
I called him my brother. He called me his sister. Like our parents were dating, like there was like it was like a stepbrother, stepsister situation. Like when he was going through all that stuff in San Francisco, we were on the phone every single night. We were very close. And my boss at the time was just like, I was like sobbing in her cubicle and I'm like, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to take a break. And she's like, okay. I was in the bathroom for 5 whole minutes and she came in. She's like, you good? Can you get on the phone? And I was like, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice.
Yeah.
I'm going to Florida. Bye. Like pretty much that's what happened. And I mean, I'm happy that my stepdad was there for me, but like not a lot of people understood the relationship that me and Mark had. They were just kind of like pushed it aside, like, oh, he was like your stepdad's girlfriend's son,
But
like,
it's not their business to understand it. You
yeah,
know what it was.
yeah,
And Mark knew what you guys were. So it's like really no one else's business.
But I felt that though. Like I felt that people didn't understand and therefore didn't know how to be there for me. It wasn't like my actual brother died or my actual, you know, friend. Like it was just we had this very unique relationship
Right.
that nobody really knew how to address. And
Right.
he didn't have a funeral. He didn't have anything like that. Like we literally went to the beach, drank a beer, and ate some tacos to remember him. Like that was our thing for him. Um, but I felt like I didn't have the support that I needed because of that,
Right.
because people didn't get it. You know, I don't know if that was it. I don't know if people were just, that was also the year that like everyone else in my life had died. I lost one of my best friends, Maggie. She was brutally murdered in Mexico. Like it was really, really rough. And then my friend Kyle died that year from an overdose, and my grandma died earlier that year. It was just, that was 2018 was just like the worst year ever.
Yeah.
But that was also the year that like me and Jim bought our house. And so like there was this good that balanced out terrible. And
Yeah.
I think that's how I got through it, you know?
You had other things to focus on.
Yeah. I had other things and that's how I get through it. That's how I get through most of what I deal with is I change lanes. I switch focus. You know, like when COVID started and I was like out of my mind crazy with anxiety, I I can't even count how many hobbies I took up. I had to keep my brain occupied or else I would just be like paralyzed in COVID fear.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing with grief. I think that's how I get through it is like, even if I don't have that support system, I just have to switch focus.
So if you wanted if what was I gonna ask? Besides the whole like ball analogy, I can't think. If
The ball and box analogy.
yeah, the ball in the box analogy, which
Yeah.
I think I've had people like 3 people tag me in this or like send that to me. What do you want to tell the world about grief? Because it seems like you've been through it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I would
Every
just
way.
say that there's so much to say, but personally, for me, there's no telling what it can do to you. Don't try and control it. Because the more you try and control it, the more you're going to realize you can't control it and you're just going to go deeper into it. You know, that's for me, that's how I think that I've managed to not spiral anymore since my grandfather died. Like it's just okay, we're gonna go through it, and however we go through it, that's how we go through it. Whatever feelings we feel, if we need to pause and shift focus to something else for a minute, then we're gonna do that. If we need to sit in it for months and years, then we're gonna do that. I get tattoos now, that helps. Like it's one of those things that like that's part of my grieving process now is like I have my little taco surfing turtle for
So
Mark.
cute.
Yeah, like I have them all over. Like I've got all sorts, like this one's for my friend Kyle and this one's for Maggie, and like I have them, and it's just part of my way to deal with things and compartmentalize, but I just there's no telling on what it's going to do to you. So you just have to go through it and let it kind of push you forward as best as it can, but like, don't control it. There's no controlling grief.
Yeah.
it's a tornado, like it's either going to be teeny tiny and you're just going to get a little bit of wind, or it's going to be an F5 and it's going to level everything.
Yeah.
Or anything in between.
Yeah. I woke up this morning with a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Panic.
Over, like, just from what?
It's a good question.
It just happened.
Just happens. Yeah.
That's how my anxiety plays out too. I just wake up with it. And I have this like pressure on my chest and this pressure in my temple or my jaw, because I'm like clenching my jaw so hard and my shoulders are all tensed up. And
yeah.
I don't know where it comes from, this like existential dread that's always plaguing me.
You're the first person I've talked to all week because I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten good with like compartmentalizing this series because I was doing it so often that I like a chance to like think about like what we were talking about. And I think
now there's some like space.
There's been like space in between.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people reach out and they're saying, what you're doing is it's very heavy, but it's very like it's helpful.
I feel like a lot of people are scared to talk about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's because you're dealing with your own grief.
Yeah, I'm not a professional, and I'm like, there's someone who's dealing with it.
Yeah. And then you're talking to other people about their experiences with it while also bringing your own experience into it. That's heavy on you, and then you're then telling people like, hey, can you tell me about your experience, which is heavy on them.
Yeah.
And then you have to process all of that.
But I talk about it because it's not. And, I just want people to know that they're not alone. Like, that's it. That's all I want.
That's one of those things where it's like when you're grieving, it's very selfish, like we talked about, but it's very isolating.
Yeah.
It's incredibly isolating, because even the people that were close, like your parents and your other siblings and your other friends that were friends with your friend, your mutual friends, you still feel like you're the one who's going through the worst.
Mm-hmm.
You always feel like that.
Yeah.
Like I remember being so resentful towards my mom because I was like, how are you not sad all the time over Poppy, which is what we call my grandpa? How are you not sad all the time over Poppy dying? How are you not crying every day? Like, did you even love him? Did you even care about him? Like I was so resentful towards her because like she wasn't going through it the way I was. And I was convinced that I am me. I am the center of the universe.
Yeah.
I'm going through it the worst. Nobody knows what this feels like.
Yeah.
But it's just she had her own ways of coping with it.
And that's like there's no handbook, which I wish there was. There's no checklist. There's no.
No, and those stages of grief, in my opinion, are BS.
And I actually read I was gifted a book when everything first happened. I have a group of friends who I've never met in person. We met through a book club online.
Okay.
Or like a Facebook group about a book, and then a book club started, and then it dwindled to like 8 people, and we've been meeting since February last year.
Mm-hmm.
And every Sunday, 8:00, we meet on Zoom. And I haven't been on since everything happened because it's just been a lot for me. But when everything first happened, they sent me care packages, and they sent me some books. And one of the books, like all the books were about grieving, but they weren't like educational grieving. They were like, stories. And one of them talked about how the what's her name? The lady who did the 5 stages of grief, how she said back then like right, like now, if she would have done that now, it would have been completely different because those stages don't come in that order.
No,
Because
definitely not.
no.
No.
Uh, So, and
You know, and there's like also different kinds of grief. You can't just characterize grief as one singular thing.
yeah.
There's grief over people that we've lost. I grieve friendships that
Mhm.
I am no longer in anymore. I grieve relationships that I'm no longer in anymore.
Yeah.
I grieve the loss of like my former self a lot.
Mhm.
You know, like that girl that would go out and party all night and like wake up 3 hours later ready to go to work. I
Yeah.
grieve that version of myself every morning when I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning after 6 hours of sleep and I feel like death,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, oh, I miss her. I miss her so much. She knew how to have fun. Now I'm just like, all right, I stayed up until 11 o'clock watching Grey's Anatomy reruns, and now I'm gonna be sad all day tomorrow. Like it's just, you know,
Yeah.
but there's no one thing that's the same.
Yeah.
You losing your grandfather at 9 is not the same as me losing my grandfather at 14. Is not
Right.
the same as my mom losing her father at 40 and your mom losing her father at 28 or 29.
Yeah.
Like it's never going to be the same, but you know, a lot of those feelings are similar.
Yeah. And I
It's just
feel
the
like
experience is different.
and I feel like what I'm trying to bring is that we all can feel connected even though like our journeys are different. Like we're all on this journey together. And
Yeah.
even my friends who obviously they didn't lose their sister, but they've been around long enough that they've known my siblings. My best
Yeah.
friend has been in my life for 30 years. So she pretty much was there when my sister was born.
Yeah.
So she kind of did lose a sister and she like considers her little sister. She and so she might not be on the same grief path as I am. Like we're on that road together.
Mhm.
And I think I just I just want them to know they're not alone.
Yeah.
And you feel how you feel when you need to feel it. And that's it. And no one should tell you otherwise.
No.
Then they don't, if they're telling you you should feel this way, then they need to be lucky that they've never been in this situation.
Yeah, I feel like the people that have experienced extreme loss and grief and, on any level, whether it's like a person dying or, losing a relationship or whatever it is, there's that like understanding of like, hey man, you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
You deal with this how you need to deal with this. My father-in-law just lost his ex-girlfriend. They haven't been together in about a year, and they were like in an on and off again, somewhat toxic relationship. Um, but it literally happened like Friday. He called me and told me that she passed away. And I know him enough to be like, don't let anybody tell you how to feel.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to try and tell you how to feel. People are going to try and tell you, you need to move on, or you need to do this, or you need to, go to grief counseling, or do the, whatever they try and suggest to you, you do what you feel comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And you deal with this how you need to deal with this. And I will be here if you need anything from me. If you need, a ride somewhere, or you need just to come and hang out with the dogs, like I'm here. And he's like, okay, thank you. And it's like, yeah, like I know better. Like, and I feel like if someone in your friends' lives had passed away, you would now know enough to just be like, hey man, not going to tell you how to feel. You do what you need to do to get through this. I'll be here.
Yeah.
You know, you tag me in when you need me.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I feel like is just generally accepted among those people that have experienced it, which I'm curious to see when you find someone who hasn't gone through it. I'm curious to see what their perspective is.
Yeah, I'm really trying.
Yeah.
I'm going to send out more. You know, when the day of my sister's day of the burial, when we're all at the mercy meal, repast meal, whatever you call it, I got a text message around like 5:30, and it's from my friend Carol, who lives in Virginia. And she said, "Hey, I'm in your area. If you want to meet for coffee or something." And I was so confused. I was like, "What? Like, are you here for like? Why are you in my area? Are you here for work or something?" She's like, "No, I'm here in case you need me."
Oh, that just broke my heart. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She drove
That
4.5 hours
that
to a
girl,
hotel, didn't even tell
she's
me,
a keeper.
just to say, "I'm here if you need me." And if I wasn't crying already,
Oh,
because here's what it like, and I was like, "Oh my God, like, please come like."
that is unbelievable. I remember when the day my grandfather was buried, it was the 26th, it was December 26th. It was my best friend Veronica at the time. It was my best friend Veronica's birthday. And I remember she showed up to the funeral and I lost it. I like ran into her arms and I was like, why are you, like, she was supposed to be on like a snowboarding trip for her birthday, I think. And I ran into her arms and I was just like, what are you doing here? It's your birthday. Why are you at a funeral on your birthday? And she's like, I just wanted to be here for you. I mean, I was 14, she was 13. Like, what 13-year-old has that size heart?
Yeah.
That's just, you know, if I was 13 and my friend's grandpa's funeral was on my birthday, I probably wouldn't have gone. My heart was not that big at that age. You know, it's just like the selflessness. It surprises you. It totally threw me off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love that for you though. I love
Yeah.
that you have friends like that that'll just pack up and show up like, hey, if you need me, I'm right down the street.
Yeah.
I'm at a hotel.
Booked, like, Googled where I lived and Googled towns around. She booked a hotel in Piscataway.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Had no idea.
That is amazing. That is so unbelievably like, and was this one of your book club girls?
No. So I've been friends with her since like 2006. I met her when I was in college in Maryland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And she hadn't been up to Jersey at all.
No, this is her first time visiting me. Like, this is her first time coming to visit.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that warms my heart.
Weekend, you know, we saw Friday night, we saw her Saturday, and then she went home on Sunday.
That's great. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, even in, you know, the most dark time of your life, you have that little tiny sliver of happiness.
Yeah.
You know, that you're allowed to have.
Yeah, like I said, I've been very, very fortunate. My best friend, she's from here, but she had moved to London, and she just moved back. But when this happened, she was in London, and I called her when everything happened, and she picked up the phone. I said, "I need you to come home." She goes, "Why?" I said, "Susie passed," and she's like, I'm coming home." She booked the flight that night and was home the next day.
Oh, that's great.
You know,
To have that
so,
kind of support in your life. Nothing else meets that. Like, nothing else is better than that.
yeah.
You know, you can't like equate that to anything else, I guess. Like, there's just that, like, hey, I need you. Come home.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, I have people that I know I can call on day or night and they'll be there. I remember the one time recently, and she's been my best friend since we were 15. Recently, it was like middle of the day or something. I don't remember why, but I just called her and she was at work and she texted me immediately and she was like, I'm at work. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? She's like, I don't know. You called me in the middle of the day. Are you okay? Do you need me? Do I need to take a break? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just wanted to tell you about this Taylor Swift thing that I found. like, like, but thank you for offering to drop everything.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, you know, but I feel like a lot, my friend group has dwindled in the last 10 years. I don't put up
Quality
with a lot
over
of people.
quantity.
Yeah. I don't put up with a lot of people's toxic behaviors anymore. I have my people that have managed to grow with me instead of against me.
Yeah.
Like I definitely had people who resented the way that I grew up. Somehow, like I lost a friend because I like found a healthy relationship and bought a house. She didn't like that. She liked being the responsible one. I was no longer the self-destructive one. I had to go, you know. But having that kind of support around you where you can just like snap your fingers and they're there.
Mhm.
It's one of the best tools to have when you're grieving.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't like your friend who came up from Virginia, even if you didn't need her there, she was just there when you did.
Yeah.
She was like, listen, I could stay in this hotel all weekend, no worries, go home. But I'm here if you want to grab a cup of coffee.
That's exactly what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just to talk. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
I love that you have that, especially right now in your journey. You're gonna need that, you know,
Yeah. And then I have friends
that kind of support.
like I just need to be alone. And
Yeah.
you know,
And that's just the other thing. It's like it's okay to also to isolate. I
yeah.
feel like there's a lot of negative connotations put onto like isolating,
Mhm.
but sometimes you just need to be by yourself for a minute.
Yeah. Peopling is like what got me like through day to day. Like right now, peopling is just like a lot for me.
It's a lot for me, and I'm not even going through anything right now.
So,
I can't. I don't want to be around anybody.
yeah, like I texted two of my friends. I'm like, my one friend was like, you take all the break from peopling that you need, sending you hugs. Another friend has said, I saw your video. Tell me when you're ready. I said, okay.
Yeah, that's it. Like I said, you're gonna do it the way you're gonna do it, and nobody's gonna tell you otherwise.
Yeah, no one's in my shoes. No one's in your shoes. No one's in anyone else's shoes to be like, you're doing
Yeah.
it wrong.
Yeah.
If you're
There's
not
no wrong
yourself,
way. As long as you're not hurting yourself, like physically and emotionally damaging yourself,
yeah,
you're doing okay.
yeah.
You know?
So,
And sometimes like I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but one of the biggest things I have done subconsciously to cope with death and grief is disassociate. And I don't realize I'm doing it until it's done, where I just zone out for a day, an hour, half an hour, a week, whatever
mhm.
it is. I will just go through the motions and not use my brain.
Mm.
I will like my brain just stops.
I,
It's just like we need a break, Katie. We need a break. We're gonna,
yeah, I have like grief
associate for a
brain,
minute.
like not pregnancy brain where like you forget things. I have like grief brain, but I'm like, I don't know what I was saying or why I was saying it or what just happened 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like a thing, but like it's a thing for me right now.
No, that's a thing. That's
Like
totally
my
a thing.
like my short-term memory, I'm like, couldn't tell you what I'm.
Your capacity is full, you know. So things are gonna not get in there. They're not gonna process the way it would if you were just if this didn't happen,
Yeah.
you know, if life was happy and fun,
Yeah.
you know, and bubbles and rainbows, like
Right. I
you wouldn't
wish.
have
Why
this
can't it
full
be like that all the time?
capacity. No.
Sunshine and rainbows.
I always need like a little bit of darkness in my life. Just it's a nice balance. You know, when things are going too well, I'll bust out Taylor Swift albums and pretend like I just broke up with like my long lost love. And my husband's in the other room, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, stop it. We hate each other. We're getting a divorce. I need to deal with this.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about life's all about balance. But yeah, your capacity is so small right now. It's not gonna things aren't gonna make its way through you the way they normally would.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to allow that to happen,
Yeah.
you know.
We all just need a little bit more patience with ourselves.
With ourselves and with the people around us too.
Yeah.
You
I think
know.
right now is the time to be selfish. So I think you just need to have a little.
Yeah. Be selfish. Don't feel
Yeah.
guilty about it. Be patient with the people around you.
Yeah.
You know, that for me is probably one of the hardest parts, is being patient with the people around me. Cause like they don't know what I'm going through. They don't get it. They don't, you know, even some of them probably did, but I had convinced myself that they didn't,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just, and I have a short fuse naturally. It's even shorter when I'm dealing with grief,
Yeah.
you know, so it's just allowing space, allowing to give yourself space and give them space, and everybody gets space to deal
Yeah.
with however they need to.
Yeah. So that's it. But thank you so much for chatting.
I wish you the best of luck on this journey. Everything is gonna end up the way that it needs to end up.
I
You
hope
know,
so. Yeah.
it may suck and it may get worse and it may get better and it may stay the same for a while.
Yeah.
You don't know. So just keep doing what you're doing and dealing with it how you're dealing with it, and you're gonna be okay.
We'll all be okay.
So much capacity for this, Chrissy. We do.
Yeah.
There's more, you know. I mean, 2 people in 1 week is a lot, but people have dealt with worse and people have dealt with a lot less. And, you know, your journey is unique, but there's common threads everywhere. So just lean on that and move forward.
Yeah. You as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
All
I'll talk to you later.
right. Bye.
Bye.